In dark times, when hope seemed drowned in the silence of suffering, a boy was born among the cries of an oppressed people. The destiny of that baby would not be sealed by fear or by a pharaoh's decree, but by the invisible hands of a divine purpose. This is the story of how a mother entrusted her treasure to the river, and heaven did not turn away. The desert wind slipped through the cracks of the huts, a whisper that reminded every Hebrew family of their place in a land that no longer felt like theirs. In one of those humble homes, a woman held her newborn against her chest, her tears mixing with the child's soft warmth. Her name was Jochebed, and the boy's name had not yet been spoken aloud. Not because she didn't love him, but because uttering it was a dangerous act. The Pharaoh's decree had been as clear as the bronze of his statues. Every Hebrew son shall be thrown into the Nile. A cold, calculated command intended to silence generations before they could even walk. Jochebed, however, would not deliver her son to death, not yet. Not as long as her heart beat and her faith sustained her. "Miriam," she whispered to her eldest daughter, "go and bring more reeds. The strongest you can find, ones that won't soften in the water." The girl nodded, knowing that each step she took was a step closer to an inevitable farewell. In silence, the family wove a basket, a small ark of intertwined hope and despair. They sealed it with tar, tested it with water, and each knot, each braid, was like a held breath begging for a miracle. For 3 months, Jochebed hid the child in their home, muffling his cries with soft songs, covering him with blankets and prayers. But Egyptian soldiers patrolled closer each day. Their boots echoed with the authority of those who considered themselves masters. Then on a starless night, she knew she could wait no longer. At dawn, with the river still covered in mist, Jochebed placed the child in the basket. She wrapped him in a cloak woven by her own hands, kissed his forehead with a love that hurt, and let him go, entrusted him to the God of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob. Miriam, hidden among the reeds, never took her eyes off the little basket, slowly drifting down the Nile. She didn't know what she would do, only that she must stay and wait. The sun began to rise over the sands of Egypt, pouring its golden light over the Nile. The great river's waters flowed quietly that morning, as if they knew they carried more than reeds and lilies. They carried a purpose hidden inside a reed, basket sealed with faith. Miriam, her heart beating like a war drum, followed every movement of that little ark. Her gaze did not waver, even as the shadows stretched longer and the sounds of the palace grew nearer. Then she heard voices, laughter. A group of women dressed in fine tunics and sun-bronzed skin descended the carved steps along the shore. Leading them was the Pharaoh's daughter, walking with steady steps and a serene gaze, escorted by her servants. "Look at that!" exclaimed one of the servants, pointing to the basket floating among the reeds. The princess approached. Something in that scene struck her soul with unexpected force. She extended her hand and, with the help of a long stick, pulled the basket toward the shore. As she opened the lid, the baby's cry echoed among the stone walls and papyrus stalks. A faint cry, but alive. The princess leaned over him and for a moment said nothing. She simply looked at him. In her eyes there was no fear, but tenderness and awe. "This is one of the Hebrew children," she whispered, gently touching the baby's cheek. "I know, but I cannot hand him over. I cannot allow him to die." The servants exchanged glances, knowing that such an act could be seen as treason. But no one spoke. It was then that Miriam, gathering every ounce of courage, emerged from the reeds and ran toward them. Her voice trembled, but it was clear. "My lady, if you wish, I can call a Hebrew woman to nurse the child. I know a good woman who could care for him as her own." The princess looked up, surprised. "You were watching?" "Yes," Miriam admitted, lowering her gaze. "I couldn't leave him alone." The princess smiled, a smile that sealed the child's destiny. "Go, bring her. Let her nurse and care for him, and bring him to me when he is older. This child shall live. I will make him mine." Miriam ran. She ran faster than she ever had, as if the heavens themselves had opened a path through the sand. When she arrived home, Jochebed already knew. A mother's soul had felt the change in the wind, and so the woman who had surrendered her son to the river was called to nurse him under royal protection. Her faith had not merely floated, it had been embraced by destiny. The pharaoh's palace rose imposingly like a mountain of stone, carved by human hands, but inspired by the vanity of Egyptian gods. Inside its golden walls, among scarlet and turquoise-painted columns, echoed foreign tongues, ritual songs, and the shuffle of sandals across polished marble. There, a Hebrew boy grew up as a prince. The pharaoh's daughter, true to her word, took the boy as her own once he had been weaned. She named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." His name echoed like a whisper of intertwined origin and destiny. "Moses," she would say as she stroked his curly hair, "the water did not consume you. You are strong, you are mine, and you do not yet know how far you will go." The boy grew, surrounded by Egyptian wisdom. He learned to read hieroglyphs, to write with reed pens, to understand the cycles of the Nile, to distinguish Ra from Osiris. But there was something within him that set him apart, a silence in his gaze, an echo in his soul. Something in his blood called him beyond the throne. Sometimes, in the palace gardens, Moses would watch the Hebrew slaves cutting stone under the sun. Their skin, their faces, they looked too much like his own. Something inside him stirred. One afternoon, while eating fruit on the porch with his adoptive mother, he asked with the innocence of someone who already knew the answer, "Who am I, mother?" The princess remained silent for a long moment. Then, in a soft voice, she answered, "You are my son, but you are also the son of another people, a strong people, though enslaved. I love you, Moses, but one day you will understand that you were called for something greater than this palace." The boy lowered his head. The words floated in the air, suspended between two worlds, and so the boy, drawn from the waters, grew among gods who were not his own, in a house that sheltered him. But that would never truly be his home. The sun burned high over the parched mud streets. The golden splendor that covered the pharaoh's palace did not reach the labor fields, where thousands of Hebrews, their backs bent and hands wounded, built the cities of kings. But with souls broken by centuries of silence, Moses walked among them, not as a slave, but not fully as an Egyptian either. He wore fine linen, yet his gaze was restless. That day, the murmurs reached him like an ancient echo, a lament rising from the very depths of the earth. An Egyptian overseer shouted, lifting his whip against an elderly Hebrew who could barely stand. The sound of tearing flesh split the air, once, again, and again. Moses stopped. Something inside him shattered. The pain, the blood, the cries. It was as if his own heart were being flogged. "Stop!" he shouted, running toward the overseer. "Who are you to command me? I am a servant of Pharaoh, and he is my brother." Moses replied in a low voice, yet so firm that even the wind seemed to still. The Egyptian laughed, and in an instant, where fury and justice fused, Moses struck him hard. He had not known there was such power in his hands, until he saw the man fall and not rise again. Silence. The elderly Hebrew stood frozen, stunned. Moses looked at his own hands as if they did not belong to him. He dug in the sand, buried the body, looked around. Nothing would ever be the same. The next day, while trying to break up a fight between two Hebrews, he heard something that pierced him deeper than a spear. "What about you? Will you kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" The secret was no longer a secret. Fear crawled up his spine like poison. And by evening, Moses heard the words he most feared. Pharaoh knew, and Pharaoh wanted him dead. Without looking back, Moses fled Egypt, not as a prince, not as a hero, but as a man in ruins. A man caught between identities, between worlds, bearing the weight of a life he still did not understand. The desert asks no questions, it only waits. The heat devours thoughts, and silence covers the soul like a shroud. There, in that nameless vastness, Moses wandered aimlessly, yet with an invisible destiny awaiting him. He crossed stone valleys, climbed sun-scorched hills, and drank from dry wells. He was no longer a prince nor a slave. He was a fugitive, and yet, for the first time, he was free. After days of walking, he arrived at the land of Midian, where shepherds guided their flocks, and the stars shone clearer than the columns of the Egyptian palace. There, sitting beside a well, he saw a group of women arriving, each carrying jars on their shoulders, laughing and singing softly. But they were not alone for long. Other shepherds arrived, rough and loud, pushing the young women aside to claim the water first. Moses, though weak, stood up. Justice still lived in his veins. "Leave them alone," he roared. The shepherds mocked at first, but Moses was not just words. He fought, pushed, defended. The women filled their jars without fear. Upon reaching home, they told their father Jethro what had happened. "And where is this man?" the old man asked with a shrewd smile. "Did you leave him there without inviting him to eat?" They hurried back to find him. And so Moses was welcomed into a strange home that soon felt like his own. Over time, he married Zipporah, one of whom, Jethro's daughters. He tended sheep among the mountains, learning to read the sky and trust in the simple things. The Egyptian palace became a distant memory, like a dream lived by another man. But heaven had not forgotten Moses.